Hi, I'm Johnny. This is Johnny Likes, the show where I talk about movies that I like. And today I'm talking about a cult classic thriller from the mid 1980s. Today, Johnny likes The Hitcher.
You tell him, Johnny. You tell the world.
Jim Halsey is on a cross-country road trip. Along the way, he picks up hitchhiker John Ryder, which turns out to be an incredibly bad idea. Some fairly vague, mild spoilers to follow. Rutger Hauer is amazing in this. He just oozes pure menace, and he should have won an Oscar for it. He's so good, absolutely frightening throughout.
What's so funny?
That's what the other guy said.
Who's the other guy?
The guy who was driving that car back there. The guy who picked me up before you did.
Was that him in the car?
Yeah, I'm sure it was. Could have walked very far.
Why is that?
Because I cut off his legs.
C. Thomas Howell was also very good, and he held his own against Hauer for the most part. Howell had a few emotionally heavy scenes, and I thought that he played them very well. And I thought he did an exceptional job in the following clip, due to the unexpected amount of desperation and raw panic that he conveys. The writer, Eric Red, knows how to write scary psychos doing scary psycho things. He also wrote Near Dark, a solid vampire flick in which scary vampires do psycho scary vampire things. And Blue Steel, another solid thriller in which a scary guy does scary things. There's just enough dialogue in this to get the story points across and to give us a little bit of the inner workings of Halsey. But at the same time, it leaves us lots of room for interpretation of what Halsey and Ryder's relationship is. What's the nature of the symbolism there? Messed up father and son relationship? Teacher and pupil? Lovers? I could see arguments for any, if not all of these points of view. But what the dynamic honestly reminded me of the most was, oddly enough, Batman and the Joker. So much so, in fact, that I would absolutely be shocked if Christopher Nolan wasn't at the very least aware of, if not a fan of this film. There was just so much Dark Knight vibes in it for me. Ryder is the unstoppable force who has finally found his rock in Halsey, and he's determined to push Halsey further than he thought he would or could possibly go. Which is the Joker and Batman's dynamic in The Dark Knight in a nutshell, if you ask me. Along with the great acting and screenplay, the film also features some wonderful cinematography that's at times haunting. There's lots of big landscape shots and some good interior stuff as well. And there's also some great vehicular-based explosions and stunts. And those two elements often complement each other. This movie is tense from the opening to the closing credits. It's fantastic all the way through with some great pacing. It only lets you catch your breath for a moment, and then you're sent straight back into panic mode. It's got a fairly nihilistic tone and a pretty bleak ending. I was actually shocked that Nash didn't end up getting saved somehow, especially considering she was kind of the love interest and the only woman in the movie. It's not typically how Hollywood movies go, which I suppose makes this not your typical Hollywood movie, which is something that I loved about it. I had very few problems with the movie, but I did have a few, with the largest and most glaring being the lack of realism concerning how Ryder could just appear at any opportune moment. He's seemingly omniscient as to where Halsey would be before he's there. He's always one step ahead of him, always in the exact right place, exact right time. And they just pushed that element a little bit too far to be completely believable. Another small problem I had was that Halsey's decisions as the film went on became less and less relatable. Most of them can kind of be rationalized because he's scared, panicked, desperate, lacking sleep. All these things add up into bad decision making. But as I was watching, I found myself more than once thinking, what are you doing? However, on the flip side, I can also see someone completely relating with Halsey at every step of the way, so that was just my take. The hotel room scene at the end had some time-lapse issues for me. Halsey goes in for a shower, and Nash is able to call her dad and get kidnapped by Ryder and get strapped into the death semi-rig, and Ryder can notify the police and get the whole situation under control. All while Halsey's in the shower. I'll just make that noise. That's kind of my discontent with it. And while the finger in the fry scene, magnificent. Chef's kiss. It didn't make all that much sense logistically. Ryder would have had to have snuck into the closed restaurant with an already severed finger that he got from God knows where that he just kept for psycho reasons, stuck it in the fries, and either snuck out or hid without being noticed. Is it impossible? No. Is it improbable? Yeah. And to be fair, it 100% had me in the moment as I was watching it, and I didn't think about the logistical stuff until later, but I did start thinking about it. For my most recent watch, I was curious about how this film would hold up, as I'd seen it twice before, in two very different settings. Once was by myself in my room late at night, in the dark. That was scary. It was a good movie. I was like, oh, this is awesome. So a few months later, friends and I are renting movies. I was like, oh, The Hitcher, we should watch that. It's awesome. We rent it, watch it like mid-afternoon. We're kind of joking around a bit. Movie was almost comical in that setting. It had lost all its power. So I was wondering if I was crazy the first time I watched it. So I was pleased that it landed on the terrifying and excellent end of the spectrum this time around. It's a good film. And I ended up appreciating every aspect of the film way more than when I was younger. I think it's one of the most underrated thrillers of the 1980s, and I'd recommend it without hesitation. Just don't watch it in a stupid party atmosphere. It's literally a nightmare from beginning to end. Up until the last section of the movie, you're not 100% that Ryder is even real. Like, there's a version where Ryder is just a figment of Halsey's imagination that he's created to justify the brutalities that he's committed. It's not until you see Nash actually see and experience Ryder's wrath that you're 100% certain that he is real. But had they gone the Ryder is imaginary route, that still could have been a pretty interesting film, I think. So in case you haven't figured it out, I think this film is great, and I think more people should see and appreciate it. I'm going to give it a 4.5 out of 5. Those are my thoughts on The Hitcher, and you can leave yours in the comments. While you're here, you want to click all the happy buttons for me, the like, subscribe, whatever other ones that they've come up with in the future. Thanks. Honestly, thanks for watching me talk about movies for a little bit, and you can tune in next time to see what else Johnny likes.